Hey everybody, welcome. Sports and shorts of sorts. Episode 21. We just keep trucking along here, and when I think 21, I gotta think of my favorite basketball player ever. Tim Duncan, wearing the jersey right now. The big fundamental. He did he wasn't anything flashy, but he did it. And he spent all 19 years of his career with San Antonio Spurs. Amazing. And he was one of the rare guys that went to college for 4 years. You know, he went to Wake Forest and did his thing. He was easily the number one pick. Everybody wanted to win that lottery. Spurs were lucky because the year prior, David Robinson had an injury and he was out damn near the whole year. So the Spurs snuck in, won the number one pick, took Duncan. The rest is history. He's a force, right? From the moment he stepped on to the court in the big leagues, he won Rookie of the Year. He put up crazy stats, two-time MVP, back-to-back MVPs, 15-time All-Star, 10-time NBA first team, three-time second, two-time third. He was all about being at the best at his position. A force on the defensive end, eight-time all defensive first team, seven-time all defensive second team. Like, if you wanted a guy to anchor your team offensively and defensively, look no further than Tim Duncan. And yeah, five-time NBA champion, the three of them finals MVPs. I still think he had the quadruple double in the finals. People have made YouTube videos looking back, checking it, because he ended the game with 21 points, 20 rebounds, 10 assists, eight blocks, but you could have easily given him two more blocks. But obviously, his numbers retired in San Antonio at Wake Forest, Hall of Famer. Like I said, my favorite player of the all time, if that has anything else to add. But now he's stepped into the mentor role to help develop number one pick Victor Wembanyama. So you couldn't have a better guy to, help mentor you than Timmy. So not to be overshadowed, he kind of is just based on the ring comparison. But Kevin Garnett, he went into the Hall of Fame same year as Tim Duncan. They were constantly facing each other in West battles, between Minnesota and San Antonio, and even faced off a little bit when he went to the Celtics. Not as many games, obviously, being in another conference, but two totally different routes to the NBA. Garnett didn't go to college at all. He was one of the straight to the NBA guys out of high school. So people would say, oh, well, his number five, that should be what he's known as because that's what he wore in Boston when they won the title in '08. But I got to think 21. I remember the old Adidas ads with Garnett and Duncan 21, 21. And yeah, they were synonymous with each other and with that number. And like, when I still think of greatest Timberwolf of all time, you got to think Garnett's got to be in there, right? So yeah, but not to sound like an old man, but when I was growing up, it was all about the big guys. Right now, it's Steph Curry. Like you gotta be quick off the bounce and have a three, right? The three wasn't as big then, but pretty sure Garnett could do it if that's what he needed. He had a silky jumper, and like every night you're going up against Chris Webber, Dirk, Tim Duncan, and he was putting up sick numbers. Like he's one of only five players to win MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. He won the MVP in '04, Defensive Player of the Year in '08. 15-time All-Star, four-time first team, three-time second, two-time on third team, nine-time defensive first team, three-time all defensive second, and like I mentioned, he had won the Defensive Player of the Year. Sorry, that tickle, sloppy pickle. This is a tickle there. Sorry about that. But yeah, he left with not the best terms with ownership. I know there's new ownership there, so maybe he'll get his number up retired in Minnesota. It's insane to me how his number isn't retired, but I still haven't watched it, but I need to watch Uncut Gems. It's got Kevin Garnett. I heard he does a phenomenal job. I can't believe I haven't watched this. But staying on the hardwood, have to mention the human highlight film, Dominique Wilson. Dominique Wilkins, oh my lord. I don't know what I was thinking there, but Dominique Wilkins, mostly known for his time with the Atlanta Hawks. He bounced a bit near the end of his career after injury, even going to Greece and winning the Greek Cup and Greek Cup Finals MVP. Like, I didn't realize the in-depth, the dominance he had over in Greece until I had looked it up. But when I thought 21, you got to think of Dominique, Even after, like I said, that injury, ruptured his Achilles 91-92 season, people said he was done, but he came back, and he came back big. But yeah, 9-time All-Star, All-NBA first team once, All-NBA second team 4 times, and All-NBA third twice. So we all know of his dunk contest prowess, and some say he was hosed by the Chicago crowd in that duel against MJ in '88. Some say it's the best contest other than Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon's back in Toronto. But wow, something else. He was a human highlight reel for a reason. And yeah, he's unfortunately labeled one of the best never to win the ring, thanks to Boston, Detroit, Chicago. There were some powerhouses around the time he played, but yeah, easy Hall of Famer. He's got a statue outside the stadium in Atlanta. He's something else. Still does color commentary for the team. I like him. Anytime you got Dominique Wilkins involved, it's pretty good. But geez, basketball's taken up damn near this whole portion. But I have to mention reigning MVP Joel Embiid. Right, he's dominant for the Sixers. Some aren't always big fans of his antics and whatnot. Joel the Troll, but this guy's from Cameroon. He's established himself as one of the best players in the game, leading the league in scoring the last 2 seasons. Like, that hasn't been done since Shaq led. Like, centers don't usually lead the league in scoring nowadays. Like I had mentioned earlier, it's more of a guard league. But kudos to Embiid. We'll see what he does if Harden sticks around or gets traded. I don't know. That's still down the road. But we're finally leaving the courts. We're going to the Diamond. Some say this person should have been mentioned first, but I'm like, Tim Duncan's my guy. I gotta mention him first. But Roberto Clemente, right? One of the best to ever play in the MLB. All 18 years was with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Puerto Rico he was born, and like his Latino influence is unmatched. Everybody knows a Roberto Clemente. 15-time All-Star, 2 World Series wins, including a World Series MVP. Won the NL MVP in '96, 4 batting titles, and he was a beast defensively. 12-time Golden Globes, and yeah, in '72 he died in a plane crash at 38. He was delivering aid to victims of a Nicaraguan earthquake. Like, he was always trying to better the Latino community. It's a real shame he passed too early, but we're sticking with a guy who looked up to Roberto Clemente. Sammy Sosa from the Dominican, some remember him with his duel with Mark McGuire when they were chasing the record. He's an NL MVP, and like, but everybody was juicing back then, so it made baseball exciting. And these guys, but they're like, man, they were juicing, but it is what it is. But sticking with juicing, Roger Clemens wore 21 for a bit, the first 15 years of his career with the Jays and Red Sox, winning 5 Cy Youngs in his career. But yeah, another one of those guys that are just involved with the juicing. And in court, he said he may have misremembered. We all remembered that quote. Yeah, good old juicing. Yeah, people love watching them dingers. But going to the gridiron, there's a guy who rocked 21 during his whole football career, and he dabbled in baseball. I'm talking Deion Sanders, prime time, current coach of the University of Colorado. One of the best DBs in the history of the game on the coverage side. And like I said, he played offense a bit. True athlete. He wasn't known for his tackling, but everything else he did amazing. They got a good 30 for 30 about him when he was playing for the Atlanta Braves and the Cowboys, jumping back and forth there. But yeah, he thrived in Jackson State, one of the HBCUs, and we'll see what he does in the University of Colorado. He's already shaking it up a bunch, and yeah, we'll see what prime time can do. But everybody thinks 21, or if you're a DB getting 21, it's probably because of prime time. But another one that needs to be mentioned, because people have already forgot about him, especially the way running backs are talking about. LT. Nope, not Lawrence Taylor, but LaDainian Tomlinson. Scoring machine for the Chargers, They were in San Diego when he was there, and like, the city, meaning whale vagina, loved him. MVP, Offensive Player of the Year in 2006. He would score like a beast. Needs to be talked about more. And sticking with running backs, Frank Gore. Mr. Durable. He bounced around a bit, but he played most of his time in San Francisco. He's third all time career rushing yards, just behind Walter Payton and Emmitt Smith. So one last running back I'll mention, Tiki Barber, New York Giants fame. I mentioned his brother in the previous episode, Rondé, number 20. But you got to mention Tiki. And one last football player I got to mention, Charles Woodson. He's a Green Bay legend. He won a Super Bowl with us. He did great as a Raider. He was a Heisman winner coming out of Michigan. One of the best DBs out there. He won Rookie of the Year. He's tied with Rod Woodson and Darren Sharper, jailed rapist, for most offensive touchdowns in NFL history. All the guys I had mentioned in the NFL are in the Hall of Fame except Tiki, although Rondé has been vouching for him. And one quick shout out to hockey. Stan Mikita, Chicago Blackhawks legend, two-time MVP of the league, four-time Art Ross winner. He won Stanley Cup in '61 and was also in the Summit Series. So, yeah, he has a statue in Chicago. Hall of Famer needed to be mentioned. But, wow, a lot of jersey mentions there. I guess 21 is pretty big in the sports world. Again, Tim Duncan, my man. But we'll segue from the jerseys to the sports happenings in the world, right? One of the biggest things going on in the world right now, Women's World Cup. And these group stages have been absolutely bonkers. Like, this has been one of the most wide open tournaments in history. You had the Philippines beating New Zealand, getting their first ever goal at the World Cup. And then you had Canada going into Ireland needing the win. They won. They're in a huge game going on with Australia, needing a tie or a win. If they lose, they need Nigeria to lose big to Ireland. But we'll get more to that. We'll talk more of these wild games like Nigeria, who I just mentioned, shocking Australia 3-2. But all these match day threes that have just either happened or are about to happen, all of them have huge implications. Like, only one of the groups was decided. We know who's advancing. The other seven are totally wide open. But yeah, I am a little worried for Canada there, because if they lose this game, they'll be like Aaron Lewis sustained. They'd be on the outside looking in. And yeah, that'd be not the swan song you want for our GOAT, Christine Sinclair, to walk off, not even making it past the groups. Oh, I don't even want to say it. So good luck, Canada. I hope you pull this one off. But jumping from the pitch to the diamond, a lot going on in Major League Baseball as July's coming to an end and things are looking wilder. Toronto had a pretty interesting one. They played both LA teams in a week, and they started on the West Coast where they needed extra innings, and they took on the Dodgers. And yeah, Jays were looking really good. Took the first one, like I said, in extra innings. Second one, looking really good. Going to the bottom of the ninth, and you're up 7-3. Things were looking good, but no, things weren't. It declined real quick, needed more extra innings, much like the first game, and James Outman got a walk off, and you're like, man, should have had that one. Third game went more in the Jays' way. They dominated on both sides of the ball. Both sides, doing what they need to do. Taking 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers. And then they had to go home to take on the Angels. And yeah, it wasn't going to be a walk in the park as the Angels announced, you know what? We're going to ride with Ohtani. We're not trading him. We're going to keep this guy who earlier in the week went like crazy before facing the Jays. There was a double header against the Tigers. And yeah, in the morning game, the first one of the doubleheader, just goes absolutely crazy, giving up 1 hit, 8 strikeouts, and the Angels actually backed him up, getting him 6 runs. And then the second game, they're like, how are you gonna, outdo what you just did? And he just follows that up with 2 home runs, another bonkers stat that people didn't know we needed to have exist, but it's what Ohtani does. He does things that's unheard of. But we'll jump back from that to the series between the Angels and the Jays. And first inning, Ohtani, boom, smashed it. You went to the dugout and you could see like Chapman just kind of yelling at the staff, like, what are we doing? Why are we pitching to this guy? So, but Chapman, he backed it up. He just went back out and hit his own home run, and Jays did. They added another 3 runs. They took that game, and sweet, things are looking good. Game 2, you had Manoah going to the mound. Maybe he'd, continue to trend in the right direction, because this hasn't been a great year for him, and things definitely didn't look very good for Taylor Ward. As Manoah threw his pitch, it kind of got away from him. Raising, hit Taylor Ward right in the face. The hat flies off. You can see blood pouring out right away. He had to get carted off. Hopefully he's all right, but I don't see anything like that helping Manoah's confidence at all. He was taken out right after that game, but yeah, the Angels would go up 1-0 in the game, and that's really all they'd get. Toronto would win 6-1. Alejandro Kirk got 2 bombs. It's a lot easier for him to run around the bases when he just hit some yards. So good on him. The rubber match went on Sunday, and you had Anderson going up against Barrios, and Angels scored in the 3rd. Jays answered in the 5th, and we'd do what the Jays have been doing lately. We go to extra innings. Unfortunately, while there, Hunter Renfroe smashed a 2-run bomb that the Jays would get 1 to try to come back, but it wasn't enough. So, much like the Dodgers, the Jays would take 2 out of 3 against the Angels. Not bad to go 4-6 against the 2 LA teams, but we'll see what's really coming up as the Jays take on the Orioles next. And we know the Jays have not done well against the Orioles. Out of these 2 flying birds, the Orioles have definitely had the number of the Jays. But we'll see. This is why you play. This is why you go out. You gotta step up, and they'll follow that, staying in the AL East, taking on the Boston Red Sox. So 2 big series for the Jays in that beast of an East division. Like, we'll see. The big one's against the Orioles. We got to see if they got what it takes to go up against the top of the AL East right now. But I had mentioned some transactions earlier, and the Angels-Jays series, when the Angels, they brought in Lucas Giolito. They sent him to the mound for game 1, and they picked him up from the White Sox as well as Reynaldo Lopez. The Brewers needed help hitting. They got first baseman Carlos Santana. The Dodgers went out and got Lance Lynn. It hasn't been his best year, but he's a pretty good pitcher for the White Sox. Astros snagged Graveman from the White Sox. This is really just showing how disappointing the White Sox season has been in the AL Central. Like, they're having a fire style on pitchers here, so you don't really expect to do that when you have the kind of team they did. But much like the Cardinals, it's just been a down year. But one of the biggest trade as of the taping of this podcast has to be the Mets dishing out Max Scherzer. The Mets were supposed to be the team. They're just the team with the highest payroll. But Scherzer to the Rangers for Luis Angel Acuna. The shortstop's going back, and that wasn't even it for the Rangers. They had traded for David Robertson earlier in the week. And then on Sunday, they acquired 2 more arms, and left-handed pitcher Jordan Montgomery and right-hander Chris Stratton, showing that this team, we haven't made the playoffs since 2016, and they're showing fans, we're doing it, we're going in. And Toronto, they weren't standing still. They needed pitching, and they went out and they got Jordan Hicks from, as before mentioned, the struggling St. Louis Cardinals. So teams are building up, loading up the barracks before this last push into the postseason, where it could really go any way. Like playoff horizons starting to show. I mentioned the Baltimore Orioles. They're continuing to lead the beasts in the AL East. They just took 2 out of 3 of the Yankees, and like I said, they're facing the Jays next. So that's a big one. We'll see what Toronto can do there. And the AL Central, it's been a 1-2 battle, mostly between Minnesota and Cleveland. Detroit is somehow still alive with their record, but they need really a miracle at this point. But wrapping up the AL, you go to the American League West, and it's still up for grabs. The Rangers and Astros had a really good series earlier in the week, and that Rangers, they only got a 1-game lead on the Astros, and the defending champs. They've been lurking. Not many people have been talking about them. Altuve is back. Alvarez is back. So watch out for Houston. They may be a problem, but we'll see. And AL Angel, like the Angels, they just lost 2-3 against the Jays, but they're still in it. They're keeping Otani. They made some moves. The Mariners are right there as well. So that the wild card race will be pretty interesting. The Rays, Astros, and Jays are currently in their spots, but like I said, there could be games of musical chairs going on to see which position is whose. And going in the National League, the Braves proved to be the cream of the crop as they have double digit. That was a bad Macho Man, by the way, but they have double digit leads. The Marlins and the Phillies in their division. And the NL Central has now become a three-horse race. You have the Chicago Cubs lighting it up as of late. They've somehow gone from out of it to right in it. They're just 4 games back of division leader Cincinnati. And the Reds and the Brewers seem to be alternating spots for division leads. So yeah, it's still totally wide open. And out in the NL West, it's you got 3 horses and a lot of horse racing going on here. But another 3 horse races. The Dodgers are only 2 games ahead of the Giants. And the Diamondbacks are 2 games behind them. So it's still wide open. And then you have the Padres and all their tons of money involved in their players, and they're technically alive. Like they'd have to go on a bit of a run, but they could still pull off the wild card. The holders of the wild card right now, the Giants, Marlins, and Brewers, like I said, their teams can go on streaks. Anything could happen, and suddenly you blink, and who knows who's leading the division? Like I said, look at the Cubs alone. They were down and out, and now they're up and in, I guess. We'll go from the diamond to the racetrack, and we had our last race before the summer break go down at the Spa for the Belgian Grand Prix. They qualified Friday, and there was a sprint on a Saturday, and this Saturday was a very wet one, which is usually par for the course in Belgium. And there was even a moment when McLaren rookie Oscar Piastri held the lead, but Max Verstappen won the sprint as he wins really everything else. And the main race went down Sunday, and due to a gearbox penalty, Max wouldn't have the pole position anymore. No, he'd be in 6th, giving Charles Leclerc the pole. And surprising everyone before the race, it was really blue sky. Everybody was pumped, but lights out, start the race, and it was a bit of a fury, as most starts are. You had Sergio Perez cutting across the track to take the lead. You had contact between Oscar Piastri and Carlos Sainz, and the former would be out of the race almost immediately, which was a bummer for McLaren because Piastri was racing pretty good this weekend. Sainz would go on a little longer, but he'd have to drop out. As you looked at the side of the Ferrari, it was too damaged. He held position for a bit, but he was just dropping, and they had to withdraw him from the race. And then it seemed like order restored to the world as the 17th lap, Max Verstappen passed his teammate Perez to take lead in the race. And he'd kind of never look back, as he has all season. 8th victory in a row. Red Bull's 13th consecutive. Now that they have that record for most in a row, we'll see how far they can run with it, you know. But like I said, Perez was passed. He'd get 2nd. Charles Leclerc, he'd get 3rd to round out the podium. He held off Lewis Hamilton, who near the end, and it looked like he wasn't going to catch Leclerc, had enough time to pit and go for the fastest lap, which he did, which is, an extra point in a tight race. It matters, not really now because Max is so far ahead. But maybe someone will get an epiphany during the extended summer break here where we won't return to racing till August 27th when we go to the Dutch Grand Prix. So, yeah, a little break. Time for the drivers to R&R, I guess. Must be nice to take a month off work, eh? But anyway, there was some combat sports going on Saturday, some big ones. A big one in boxing in Las Vegas. You had 2 undefeated stars facing off, belt unifications on the line. Terrence Crawford, 39-0, going up against Errol Spence, 28-0. And Crawford showed up big time. Like, when he came out with Eminem, that should have been the sign that, oh, he ain't fucking around. And he dominated. He took down Spence a few times, knocking him to the ground 3 times in the fight. And, like, each time it looked so demoralizing for Spence. Like, he couldn't touch Crawford at times, Crawford was so dominant with his movements, his attacks. Like, Oh man, you can see why some say he's pound for pound the best fighter right now. Anyone that you put in front of him, he takes down. So now you got to see who's next, really, because yeah, he dominated it. It was I thought Spence had a chance. I picked him to win. Shows what I know, but yeah, he was clearly outmatched. So we'll see. That division is pretty good, and yeah, Crawford's running it. First male boxer to hold all four major titles in two different weight classes. Like, you got to give it to him. And that was in the ring. There was also octagon fighting going on, and there were some pretty good fights. Like my buddy had two TVs going, so we could watch them both. Like, there's a trooper right there. Shout out to Joel. That was awesome. But yeah, it was exciting. You know, Derek Lewis dropping Trow again after he won. You know, a flying knee took down DeLima, and that fight only went 33 seconds, which is it seems whenever Lewis can connect, like it's not good. Not for the opponent anyway. And then there was another one that had people salivating, the co-main between Blackwitz and Pereira, and I this one went either way. You know, like at times I don't know. I thought Pereira had it personally. So when I saw Blackwitz get his arm raised, I was like, "What?" But you know, that's the way the cookie crumbles. Sometimes that sparked up debate while watching it. I think most of us were thinking Pereira won, but you know that's why you go out and you do what you got to do. Fight to the bell, and just you leave it all out there. As long as you do that, that's all you can do. The judges will say what they say, but as long as you leave it all out there, really. But anyway, we went to the main event between Poirier and Gaethje, and that was awesome. That lived up to the hype. You know, second round, devastating kick to the head, demobilized Poirier. You know, Gaethje then went for the quick hammer punch for the ref. Baseball slid in there to keep him safe. But yeah, that was pretty intense. You know, this avenges a defeat that Gaethje suffered to Poirier back in 2018, and you know he claimed the symbolic BMF title, but wow, what a way to end that fight. A brutal kick to the frickin' head. Whew. Speaking of kick to the heads, I guess the Celtics will be feeling like they just got one, hearing that Patrice Bergeron will retire. Like a lot of people saw this coming the way they exited last year in the playoffs, but still one of the greats to play in Boston. You know, really one of the best defensive forwards to play. He's won a record 6 Selke trophies, so you know, congrats on a good career by Bergeron. Nothing but good support of people reaching out and congratulating him. And when you see that, you know he's pretty good. And in the NFL, there was big news. We were talking about Barkley potentially holding out. He did sign for 11 million. He will be, you know, ending any holdout and any as a camp. So good on them for keeping him, and we'll see what happens at the end of this season. And you know, Trevon Diggs signed a pretty decent contract, stick with the Cowboys, which is big. And Justin Herbert and the Chargers, massive deal. You hear about like what little Barkley got, and then Herbert is now one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league after his 5-year extension worth 262.5 million. And they say this will be, like I said, one of the biggest until Joe Burrow gets his extension. But concern in Cincinnati as in practice, Joe Burrow coming up limping a bit, and they're saying it's a strained calf. He will be out for a few weeks, so hopefully it's nothing serious because he's already had some injury trouble. But he is one of the best young quarterbacks in the league. You never want to see him really out too long. And I'd mentioned Barkley and the running back saga. This is a continuing thing in the NFL. It's all that, you know, the NFL's probably pumped it's getting talked about, but maybe not this. They say, you know, some all news is good news, right? But I'm not sure if this is really a good look because you had the Colts owner Jim Irsay come out and rant about like if he or Jonathan Taylor died, the running back Jonathan Taylor died, no, the NFL would continue to thrive without them, and no one would care, and all this jibber jabber, which of course prompted Taylor to make a formal trade request. Irsay's saying he won't trade Taylor, and now they're saying that Taylor's got a back issue that they can use to put him on a list where they won't have to pay him. Taylor's saying I have no back issue. So this is basically shit show 101 because there are great backs that should be paid for what they contribute to the team, but then there are so many running backs in college that are up and coming that can play in the league right now, and they are drafted on such low contracts. They gotta figure something out because yeah, they're producing backs at such a rate that they can replace some of these backs. You're gonna have a little drop off, but if you can keep it pretty close with a huge financial difference, why not? But this is a problem not just going on in the NFL. All companies are doing this. It's tough to pay someone big money when someone is willing to do the job cheaper. Industries are facing this around the world. I don't have an answer, but it's something that they're going to have to address in the next collective bargaining agreement, which isn't for a while. So I don't know what they're going to have to do in the near future because the CBA always looks at the league as a whole, your players as a whole. I don't know what they're going to be doing if they're going position by position, but we'll see. Lots of drama. Cue the dramatic music there, I guess. But we'll go from the NFL to the CFL. They're actually playing week eight. Week eight wrapped up. Hamilton Ticats beat the Red Blacks. And then it was kind of cool with the Rough Riders Argonauts game. Not the game itself. The Argonauts killed the Rough Riders. It was pretty brutal. But they played at St. Mary's University in Halifax, and I was looking at it and I was like, "Damn, this looks so familiar." And if you think of episode 1, when we're going way back, and I mentioned dancing at nationals, and that's where it was, St. Mary's University. It was all coming back. I could hear "Nod Your Head" by Will Smith as I was watching. It was cool to see, and that was really the highlight of the game. Like I said, the Argies took care of business, little BTO style. But yeah, and then you had the Elks. They are now the record holders for the most consecutive losses at home. They are sole possessors of that, which nobody wants. But hey, couldn't have happened to a better elk, I guess. I don't know where I was going with that, but tough on them. Another Alberta team lost as the Alouettes took down the Stampeders on Sunday. And then last little WNBA bit here. We'll jump there. Great games over the week. On Tuesday, only one of the games were decided by double digits. The rest were super close. The queens of the league are still the Las Vegas Aces. Only 2 losses on the season, so good on them. Out west, there's only 2 other teams that are better than 500. Dallas Wings, one of the teams to beat the Aces this season, and one of my favorites to watch. I've already talked about it's how I love watching them, especially offensively. They have players that can hit it all over, from Agbonwale to Sabale to Natasha Howard. So they're awesome. But yeah, the Minnesota Lynx are the only other team 500 or better, I guess. Out east, things are a lot closer. The New York Liberty have found their footing, winning 8 of the last 10. They're ahead of the always dangerous Connecticut Sun, and just behind them are the Atlanta Dream and the beat up Mystics. So once the Mystics get healthier, we'll see when Della Don's back contributing. We'll see. Lots of shuffling to do, but it looks like the Aces are still the team to beat. Another MLS mention, that League Cup still going on, and Inter Miami had Lionel Messi do his thing again. 2 goals and an assist. People are saying, is the MLS that bad or is Messi that good? It's a lovely combination of both, but yeah, Messi's still showing that he's must-see TV. And I don't like to mention a lot of preseason footy, but one I'll mention was between the Man U game and Wrexham. Wrexham's been doing their tour. Of course, they've been promoted to League Two. Top scorer Paul Mullen was rushing to the ball, but he collided with the Man U backup keeper Nathan Bishop, and Mullen sustained a punctured lung. He was actually hospitalized over it, but he's recovering, and he'll miss the beginning of the season, but hopefully they can get Super Paul Mullen back, because that's not what you want fresh into promotion. And for a short, there's a lot of big surprises and disappointments in the sport week, and I thought, well, let's go to one little quick short of a surprising disappointed moment in Ren City. We'll go back to the bar star days of a young 19-year-old whose confidence really depended purely on how much alcohol was consumed. You know, the right amount exuberated some swag, the wrong amount, which was a very thin line, and once you crossed that line, it was shit show city. And this is kind of what happened. Yeah, a few of us were going to go to this Mardi Gras event at the now closed down Overdrive. Shout out Overdrive, really showing my age there, but it's now Outlaws. But anywho, did what we do always before going out, pre-drink, right? And this animal was thirsty. I was pre-drinking. This led me already being messed up before we got there, but that didn't seem to stop me from proceeding to drink more. But yeah, it's pretty messed up, and I'm sure people remember how Mardi Gras works. It's a pretty exploitative of nature where beads are exchanged for titty shots, and it was titty season. Everybody was pulling them out for these little plastic beads to win some prize that I don't even remember. I don't think it was anything that good, but beads. Near the end, where they were calling everyone to the dance floor to see who had the most beads. I had a ton for some reason. I don't know if I was buying them to try to get more boobs, yeah, but remember, 19-year-old, I'm just a dirty animal, and I had a bunch, and I don't think I was getting them by flashing my movies at anyone, but I was pumped. Rick Campanelli was there. I don't know. Back in the Much Music days, he was the guy. And I know he proceeded to do other things, like maybe e-talk stuff. I don't know. But I remember from Much Music, and I was amped. I remember slurring with all my beads as they say, "Hey, get this guy out of here." I don't think I really fit the look what they were hoping to achieve through this bead thing, the creepy titty committee or whatever. But yeah, they didn't take kindly to my type out there. They got me to move. They gave it to whoever. I don't really remember as things proceeded to get black or as my memory faded a bit. But one thing I did remember, yeah, I must have thought I was near the bathroom, in a bathroom, at a urinal, or whatever, because I just pulled it out not too far from the dance floor and just started pissing. No, it's not good. Grabbed immediately, thrown out. I had a buddy nearby. He was thrown out for just being in my proximity and knowing me, I guess. Sometimes it is who you know and who you don't want to know at the time. But yeah, not good. I did that, got thrown out. Didn't really think much of anything else. Went and laid in a bush nearby. My buddies rallied me up later, bring me in a car to go back out to Warman because that was the thing. Living in Warman, you had to make sure you can get a ride to get home. There were some other rides where we'll go to those stories later, but this ride, yeah, Brad even grabbed video of me. I was in the back, just doing some weird like barking hiccup, goddamn shit show. Yeah, not my best look by any means, but nights like that make me think, hey, maybe giving up on liquor wasn't that bad of an idea. But yeah, that's alcohol, I don't want to be that guy like, oh, you shouldn't drink now that I'm only, well, I guess this is another month past, but since New Year's Eve, that's pretty good. But yeah, I don't want to be that guy just being like, hey, you shouldn't drink anymore. But I know how fun alcohol is, but we just gotta be safe with it. Remember the power it does possess. One dumb move could be your last, could be someone else's last. You don't want to be pissing on floors anywhere, public or private, so no to that. But yeah, just like an old commercial, right? Stay alert, stay safe. Well, that's 21 in the books. Another Duncan shout out. Gotta love repping Duncan, and anytime I will shout him out, I will. Hopefully, like when this podcast is done, I can go to the Canada game and be like, all right, we got this, we going on. Or not, I don't know, I'm nervous, but let's go. Go Canada, go. Thanks for coming out. Episode 21 is in the books, guys. Take care. Red City out.